Welcome back to The Rock Room and another episode of the Rock Your Divorce podcast, where we help men navigate the divorce process in a healthy way. I'm your host, Stephen Valente. If you're like me, you may be feeling bombarded with negative thoughts or negative feelings. You may be feeling hopeless or unmotivated. You may become skeptical of people and the world around you. Or you may be feeling like everything is going against you and that nothing is going your way. Well, if you feel like that, then you are absolutely in the right place. Because in today's episode, we're going to talk about removing negativity from your life and using that as an advantage both during and after the divorce process. So if that's something that you think you're interested in, then plug in, turn it up, and let's hit the stage. As we've been discussing on this podcast, if you implement both habits and routines across 7 key areas of your life, not only will you be able to navigate the divorce process in a healthy way, but you will absolutely be able to thrive afterward. The visual that I've been giving is for you to consider those 7 key areas like an equalizer or a mixing board. As I've said before, it's impossible for us to have equal balance across all 7, especially during the divorce process, because you may find yourself each and every day, even down to the hour, adjusting those faders, needing more of one of key areas of your life or less of another. But today, we're going to focus on the second key area of your life, which is mental. Now, one of the things that I've talked about in the past and was included on a previous episode was the key component of your mental health area was that of developing a mindfulness practice. And we talked a little bit about that in a previous episode, and I won't go through all the details of it. But one of the things that I did make sure that you took away from that episode was that what was meant to break you ultimately is going to make you throughout this divorce process as well as afterward. And by that I mean, having that positive mental mindset, being very strong in your mental health, being very strong in your mental awareness, and being able to navigate all that divorce throws at you from a mental game perspective is the second most important piece that you'll go through, right? We've talked about the first one being your spiritual life and that area of spirituality in your life. But there is no doubt that going through divorce and what divorce does to you mentally each and every day can absolutely be crippling. It can be devastating. And if you don't have the right positive mindset, if you are not in a positive mental attitude, you can absolutely and totally see the destruction that it can bring not only to you internally, but to people that you love around you and to the divorce process as well. So we're going to focus a little bit today on the removal of negativity and, some of those negative influences that I've mentioned in previous episodes and how to identify that negativity. And then probably the most important piece is, okay, well, what can we do about consuming positivity? Removing the negative, but adding the positive, right? So let's start talking a little bit about removing the negativity and what negative influences are in your life. Well, as I said before in a previous episode, you kind of have the internal and the external negativity, right? So I'm gonna touch on a couple of those that are probably the most prevalent or the most important to focus on. You can go watch the previous episodes in talking about negativity and mindset and having a mindfulness practice. And we're going to also talk about some of these in subsequent episodes a little bit more in detail and more specifically. But let's go ahead and talk about a couple of those. So the first one that you're going to see from an external perspective is that there is a lot of negative external forces pushing against you. And some of the examples that I gave were television and how, the television is set up right now to be divisive, right? It is negative. The sensationalism that goes on across, television and television news specifically can really add additional weight, additional fear, and additional negativity in your life, and you may not even be knowing it, right? I mean, you're trying to go on each and every day, you're trying to be informed, but at the end of the day, the negative messages that are coming through different types of media, whether it's television, whether it's social media platforms, as you're scrolling through social media platforms and you're seeing, negative ads, you're seeing negativity, there's a divisiveness, whether it's political, whether it's race, whatever it has to do with, you may not necessarily be aware that you're consuming more and more of that negativity in your life. And then you may be making choices like the music that you're listening to or the podcast that you're listening to or some of the other things that you have involved in your life are adding more and more negativity to a very difficult mental state as it is just going through the divorce process. So I want to encourage you again that you have to have your own internal radar up to know that as soon as you start to see and hear and feel that negativity coming from those sources, it is up to you to make the choice to turn it off, to put it away, and to not let that negativity continue to build up and add on in your life. Some of the other negative influences that you may have is that in your mind, you're going through worst case scenarios, right? You are telling yourself negative thoughts, negative feelings. You may be, allowing yourself to create false narratives or fantasies about things that did or did not happen or will or won't happen. And the problem is that what you start to do is you start to kind of circle that drain where your mind is bringing you these repetitive thoughts, these negative thoughts. You're chasing this, down a rabbit hole of things that may or may not happen, and that brings fear. It brings anxiety. You're trying to work through all this process, and the problem with all that is that you are doing that to yourself. There's nobody on the outside. Now, granted, there may be things happening on the outside, which we'll get to here in a minute. But at the end of the day, when you're forcing yourself to think about those things, or when you're creating those narratives or those fantasies, about what may or may not happen during this divorce process, or what may or may not happen to you or your kids, you're just adding negativity to your life that can be crippling at times, right? So that's something to be aware of on that end. What that leads to ultimately is that you're bringing depression onto yourself. You're looking at these negative mindsets, and it's kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy. There's a theory out there, a scientific theory that I heard of. It's called selective attention. And for those of you that may or may not know what it is, I'll give you an example. So let's say that you are in the new car buying process, right? You are looking for cars and you might have a specific car in mind, right? And as you're researching the car, as you're looking at that car, as you're, considering buying that car, what you find yourself doing is noticing that car everywhere you look. So you're driving down the road, you see it coming at you, you see it parked, your neighbor pulls up in it, like all of a sudden it feels like everybody and everywhere is that car. And that's a phenomenon called selective attention. And what selective attention does in relation to negativity is that you begin to absorb these negative thoughts, these negative feelings, and you're putting, in essence, negativity out into the world. And what you're doing is you're actually attracting what you're putting out, right? So you're seeing all the negative. You're noticing the things that are going wrong in your life. You're noticing the things that are going wrong in the lives of others or in the world around you. And it may not, and normally isn't, as bad as you are perceiving it because you're selectively attentive to that negativity, right? So I encourage you to, kind of flip the script a little bit and change the narrative. And we're going to talk about ways to bring positivity in your life, but you have to try to remove the negative before you can actually bring that positive in. One of the things that we're going to talk about in a much more in-depth episode is something that I call grinding in silence. And grinding in silence really means kind of shutting the outside world out, not in an unhealthy way, but as more of a protection mode for you, right? To insulate you from that negativity, to insulate you from people that we're going to talk about here in a minute, and really kind of reset yourself in a positive mindfulness practice, right? Bringing that positivity in, removing the negativity, getting away, and that grinding in silence allows you to disconnect from that outside world enough to where those negative influences aren't bombarding you, but you're also not actively engaged in those negative experiences. And I'll share an example. So if you think about an example that I shared in a previous episode regarding social media, right? A lot of times men going through divorce make a horrible mistake by airing all of the negativity that's going on within themselves, between them and their former spouse or soon-to-be former spouse, the divorce process, what happened or what's not happening or what their former spouse is doing on social media. And what that does is that not only feeds into the false narratives that sometimes go around about folks going through divorce, but at the same time too, you have to realize that everything that you say, whether it's out loud or on social media, could end up in a court document at some point. So it's better for you to just be silent, right? It doesn't do you any good to try to ruin the reputation of your former spouse. It doesn't do you any good to expend very valuable energy and that positive mental feeling that you're trying to hold by blasting negativity all over social media. So I encourage you to kind of go silent with some of those things, and we're gonna talk about silence and really shrinking your circle and doing some things positively with that time that's going to help you not only through the process but afterwards. I mentioned people, and I think it's a very important topic to hit, and we're gonna have an episode coming up here very shortly called Fan Club versus Critics. And we're going to go in depth about the people around you that are either involved with your divorce or want to be involved in your divorce without your knowledge and or permission, and what it means to have a fan club versus critics. But I encourage you to be very careful about all those people around you, including family members that may not have your best interests or intentions at heart, or may not have your kids' best interests or intentions at heart. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll talk a little bit more about the best ways to navigate people and groups and all of that in a subsequent episode. So take a look for the fan club versus critics episode. The other thing that we brought up in a previous episode regarding removing negativity and having a daily mindfulness practice is really this whole hookup culture through dating apps and men who are either in the divorce process currently and get on dating apps and want to get themselves back out into the dating world, or those that have recently been divorced and want to do the same thing. The issues that you're going to run into, and I encourage you not to do either of those things, is that you're not going to be able to fill the void that's going on in your life by rushing into another relationship with someone. And we're going to spend some time talking about dating apps. We're going to talk about the when and the where, the best ways to kind of get back out into the game, and what would be healthy and what would be successful for you, like I said, in a subsequent episode. But do not fall victim into the trap of trying to find validation or fill a void, or go out there and try to release some negativity in the world by swiping right on a dating app. So that's my suggestion and my advice to you all. So those are just some key negative influences. We've talked about those in the past. I wanted to at least readdress them for this episode, because what we have to do, as I said before, is we have to switch the narrative. We have to, instead of just removing the negativity, you have to fill it with something. And the best thing to fill it with is positivity, right? So as I said before, there's that phenomenon called selective attention. And there's also things, related to the law of attraction that's out there. And there's some folks online that talk about manifestation and laws of attraction and doing some things. And whether you believe that or not, it kind of comes down to a topic that we touched about on the spiritual side of these podcasts, which dealt with praying with intention. And not only praying with intention, but praying with expectancy related to that. And so if you bring that selective attention or the law of attraction idea into this discussion, you need to look at what are you doing intentionally and deliberately to bring positivity in your life so that you can expect the best, and therefore your perspective of everything that's going on in your life will mirror the positivity and not the negativity, right? So let's talk about a couple things that worked. And like I said, we're going to have some subsequent episodes with some specifics related to each of these topics. But the first thing is what are you consuming each and every day mentally that is positive, that is healthy, and that is something that's going to motivate you, or it's going to help you grow to become the man that ultimately God has intended you to be? What are you going to do each and every day to consume positivity that's going to allow you to build mental strength, mental toughness, that fortitude to be able to handle all the things that not only the divorce process brings to you each and every day, but well after, so that you're equipped to better handle life and appreciate and thrive in your life after this divorce is done. So a couple quick examples of that. The first one is, what are you reading, right? Now, some of you may not be avid readers out there. I was not an avid reader until I started to go through the divorce process and really wanted to find out about a lot of topics related to my divorce specifically, and also, getting through divorce and trying to gather as much information and as much experience as I could so that I could be helpful to those of you out there, and not only to me, but to those of you out there. So I encourage you to take a look at what you're reading. And this is beyond the spiritual side of your divorce process, where you should be reading the Bible, you should be learning about the teachings of Jesus Christ and kind of how to incorporate that into your daily life, that daily walk that you have. But what are you learning beyond that? How are you growing as a man beyond that? And it may not necessarily be where you're an avid reader and you sit down and read, a real thick book on personal or professional development. But it can be readings, whether it's online, whether you are scrolling through. I encourage you to follow those motivational websites or motivational Facebook or Instagram pages. I think that that's important, whether it's faith-based or not faith-based. Consuming and being able to leave things off of your scrolling that or unfollow things that are negative, unfollow things that don't fit into this new positive mindset, this new mindfulness practice that you're developing. So you have that. I personally, went through and I wanted to listen to podcasts of people that are motivating, people that are successful, people that are have gone through adversity and have come out the other side. I was relentless with finding positive quotes, right, and taking snapshots of positive quotes and rereading them, reminding myself of the positivity and the growth mindset that I wanted, versus trying to fall back into negativity and what was going on in my life, and kind of that victim mentality that we can have as men during the divorce process. So I encourage you to look for things to read, look for things to listen to. And that even opened itself up to some things that, you may or may not be aware of. And that's, music that has a positive mindset. There are some scientific studies out there related to specific frequencies, that if you listen to some specific frequencies, it resonates within the body certain ways, and it can help you, right? So this is not black magic. It's not, something of the occult. What it is it's utilizing science and being a music guy and frequencies, dealing with music instruments and everything else. I researched it and I looked at it and I thought, well, this is something that, I can have it on in the background while I'm working. I can have it while I'm walking. Sometimes I'll pray with certain frequencies on, just to kind of have that feeling behind my intentional prayers to God. So I looked at that, right? I looked at those types of things. And I think that, overall, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to focus mentally in a positive light. You're trying to fill what you've removed all the negativity from. You're filling that space with positivity and with mindfulness and with gratitude and with all of these things that bring you a much different feel than what those negative feelings provide you. And you're making a conscious choice to not fall into the negativity and accept the negativity in your life. What you're doing is you're taking control of it and you're saying, you know what, I don't want that part of my life anymore. I'm not going to get pulled into this, negative, woe is me, the world's against me, there's nothing I can do, I'm hopeless, I'm helpless. What you're doing is you're shifting that and you're saying, you know what, I refuse to allow that in my life. Instead, I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to be thankful. I'm going to surround myself with people and things and music and reading and podcasts and frequencies that promote a positive mental attitude and promote positivity and mindfulness and presence in my life. And I refuse to have anything else. And that is a choice. That is a choice as a man that you will make. And if you do that each and every day, when the negativity hits you or when you are put in a negative situation, you ultimately have already built the foundation that you are going to be able to handle this in a positive way. You see the positive in it, and you harness that positivity and you harness that mindfulness to be able to really successfully navigate that negativity or whatever external influences are pushing on you. And you will absolutely be better off in the end. And I promise you, it is a very difficult road each and every day through the divorce process. But if you get really good, especially early on, in changing your mindset and incorporating all of this positivity into your life, not only will you be able to get through the rest of the process, in that healthy way and have it work for you, but after the divorce process is done and you want to thrive in your life, you have set that foundation to do that. Okay, so let's quickly recap. Today we were talking about the second key area, mental, and one of the key components underneath developing a mindfulness practice, which was, in essence, consuming positivity. So how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing that we talked about was removing the negativity, right? Removing all negative influences that are external that may be adding negativity to our lives. That could include television. It could include social media. It could include things that we're listening to or we're reading. We need to be very mindful about all those external influences and how that negativity is affecting us each and every day. The second thing that we might need to do is remove negative people. Not all people have your best interests or the best interests of your children in mind. So you have to be very keenly aware of who those people are, and you need to leave them on the peripheral because they may be adding a heck of a lot more negativity to your life than you even know. And thirdly, you need to stay away from dating. Stay away from trying to fill a void or trying to get on those dating apps and get back in the game. It is not the right time while you're going through the divorce process or even early after you're done to get back into the game. You'll have plenty enough time to do that, and we'll tell you how in future episodes. So what are you going to do? You're going to replace all of that negativity with positivity. You're going to consume as much positivity as you can. You're going to read. You're going to listen. You're going to learn. You are going to become positivity. Having a positive mindset, having a positive mental attitude each and every day is going to build that strength, build that fortitude, and build that resilience that you're going to need throughout the divorce process and after. Next, you're going to intentionally change your mindset. So just like we talked about the laws of attraction or the law of selective attention, you are going to put positivity out so that you can get reflected positivity that's in the world. We're going to have no negative mindset at all. The third thing is that we are going to have a level of gratitude and expectancy that the things that we have in our life are positive. We're going to be thankful. We're going to be grateful for who we are, who we're with, what we have, and what's to come for us. So that's all about being positive. If there's anything that I've said today that has resonated with you, or if I've struck a chord with you that you need help with, then I urge you to go to www.rockyourdivorce.com, schedule a free 30-minute phone call with me, because I know that I can help you not only navigate this divorce process, but I can help you thrive afterward. I'm also asking that you like and that you subscribe to this podcast and you share this podcast with men out there that you may know that are going through the divorce process now or have gone through the divorce process and have not necessarily healed from that. Because if we can get more men in this rock room that understand and know and that can help be navigating the divorce process in more of a healthy way, we'll all be better off. So that concludes today's episode. I thank you for joining us in the rock room today, and I'll see you next time with another episode of the Rock Your Divorce podcast.